Today we're going to be going over ultrasonic mineral separation. There are a lot of steps to this, but overall it's not too complicated. Let's go ahead and get started. First thing you want to do is grab some paper, cut off a sheet of that, label it with the sample name. Here's a sample. In this case, we have 3 depths from a particular well. We're going to end up combining this into one sample. But before we do all of that, we want to take each of the individual samples in here and take a pinch of that material and save it in these little vials. And that way we can do any other sort of analysis like geochemical analysis, etc., on there once we're done. As an example, here's one, M98, Nerlerk is the well, 965 meters, and there's a little bit of material saved there. Another one, again, a little bit of material saved here. So you do that for all 3 of the individual depths in this case. Okay, once you've done that, and you've got your original sample material reserved here, you want to take the sample and maybe take about half of this, pour it into the mortar and pestle, and grind away with that. Once that's done, we're going to put it through a 500 micron sieve. Okay, once you have things pretty well mortar and pestled, go ahead and get or cut yourself a square of the 500 micron mesh right here. And what we're going to do is basically pour this over this. Here's our weighing paper right here. And we're just going to sift this material to get out the larger pieces and let the sub 500 micron material go onto the weighing paper. There's no precise way to do this. Just try to make sure that all the material gets onto the weighing paper. For the larger pieces, I usually end up putting those back into the mortar and pestle so that I can regrind them. At least with this sample, there shouldn't be any sort of granules or anything that's larger than 500 microns. And I don't want to waste material, so I'm going to try to get as much material out of this as I possibly can. So if I have a bunch of material at the end that's larger than 500 microns, I'll just end up putting it back into the mortar and pestle and regrinding that. Okay, so we've gone ahead and I've ground up each interval of the well. There are 3 intervals, obviously. These are all going to be joined together into one sample, and then I'm going to put those into the ultrasonic separation. But this is what they look like. And there were a few grains that just would not be crushed. And so I included that in a little bag that has the sample name and then sieve and then 500 microns up. Just because we don't want to waste anything. We don't want to contaminate anything, and we don't want to waste anything. Once that's done, we're going to mix these samples into one large sample and add those to the ultrasonic. And I'm going to wash everything and make sure everything is cleaned down here. Just to give you a background on what we're going to do, we're going to have a bucket in here. We're going to pour our sample in there while the ultrasonic is going. We're going to be adding water and stirring that material. That's going to remove all the clays, and the clays are going to pour over into one bucket and into another bucket, and then finally into a final bucket that we call US4 that's down here. And eventually we'll be left with just the heavier minerals and larger minerals in bucket US1, which is the bucket that's in the ultrasonic. I went ahead and put these hoses on the outlets of this is US1. It's the ultrasonic one, ultrasonic 2, dumps into ultrasonic 3, and guess what? That dumps into ultrasonic 4. Put the hoses on those, and then filled each of these up about maybe 2/3 of the way or so full, including US1. And then I filled up the sonicator to a little level back there. There's, if you can see that, it says maximum or operating level. So fill it up to there. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start stirring this and turning on the ultrasonicator with the automatic stirrer here. Okay, so we're gonna put the stirrer into US1 here. Be careful and gentle with this. Kind of slowly maneuver it over and down. May have to adjust the bucket a little bit. There we go. And when you're starting out with this, you want to move the stirrer level down to where it says number 2 right here. We're going to end up moving this back up, but for right now, we're going to start at roughly this number 2 part. Here we go. Should be a few inches down into the water. Again, you don't want the blades to touch any of the sides, obviously. Then you want to make sure that all of the buckets are going to empty into one another. Go ahead and turn on the sonic by twisting this dial. There's going to be an annoying noise, but that's just how it goes. And then go ahead and turn on the power to the stir. You may have to adjust the speed a little bit. You don't want a vortex in the middle there, but you want it stirring relatively well. And then go ahead and add some of the sample. And after that, add just a little small drop of soap with that too. So here comes the sample. I'm going to slowly work that in. Okay, and then a little tiny drop of liquid detergent. Oop, there, that's all that's needed. And then let this sit for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half. Okay, so we've let this sit for about a minute or so, really letting the sample get completely stirred up. Now what I did in the meantime was I took this hose, which is connected down to the faucet. You're gonna kind of move that along the back of this whole apparatus, hook it into this little binder clip, and then have it pouring out, or it's going to be ready to pour out over the sample, or over US1, excuse me, and the sample. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Turning on the water. We're just going to add water to this, and basically leave it on like that. Again, you don't want to have tons of water pouring out, but you do want to have a decent amount coming out, otherwise this would take forever. This is going to raise the level of the material or the water and the sample that are in US1. And so what you're going to do in order to compensate for that is you're going to move this part back up to this red line that's labeled number 1 here. So we'll go ahead and do that. Again, carefully move that up to 1, tighten that away, make sure the stir is about in the middle, that the speed is decent, there's a decent amount of water coming out, and we should be set for a while. What should be happening now is the water is filled up, the stirrer is mixing material up, the sonicator is breaking up floccules of clay, And the lighter material, the silt, or most likely just clay, is coming out of the hose from US1 and emptying into US2. The heavier material is going to sit down at the bottom of US2, and the lighter material is going to make its way over to US3, and then eventually over to US4. So while this is doing its thing, this is usually a good opportunity to clean, to mortar and pestle the next round of samples, etc. You just kind of wait, and we're going to be looking for US1 to start to clear up a little bit, and that's when we're going to start making our next moves. About 15-20 minutes have passed. This is really looking good. You can actually see the stir in US1, so things are clearing up quite well. You can go over to US2 and you can see what is heavier in here is sitting at the bottom, even US3, and then down to US4. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of sample, or more sample to this. Okay, to add more sample, what I did was I turned off the water that was coming into this, so everything's pretty calm. I turned off the stir just for a moment as well. Everything should be pretty much stable and calm. The sonic is still working, but that doesn't matter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down a little bit. It's basically repeating what we did the first time. I'm going to lower this down into the water. I'm going to add this, turn it on, add the sample, let everything get stirred up again, turn on the water, and move this back up. Okay, so I'm moving this down carefully. So that it's further down into the water, can stir things up a little bit better. Maybe just about 2 here. And I'm gonna turn on the stir. There it goes. And I'm gonna add the sample. Slowly add the sample here. And we're going to let this mix for about a minute or so, just like we did the first time we put any sample in. And we're going to let it mix, and then when we come back, we're going to turn the water on, let this rise a little bit, and move this back up and let things, the whole decanting process continue. Okay, so I turned the water back on. I let this stir for about a minute or so with this fairly deep in the water. Turn the water back on, the water's gonna rise, so I'm going to move the stir back up to where this red line says number 1. And then again, check, make sure everything's okay, nothing's hitting the sides, water's coming in. This is moving down. Yes, everything's working as it should. And then basically just let this do its thing again for another 15 to 30 minutes. Well, the remainder of the sample is going through the sonicator. You can set up some of the latter steps of this process. I would get a new piece of paper, again, put the sample name on that, and you're going to need 3 beakers and 3 funnels, and you also need 3 petri dishes. And what we're going to do is basically we're going to put the funnels on top of each of the beakers, fold some of the filter paper into kind of our canonical, I don't know, cone-shaped way that we do. So that's just like this, kind of fold it into quarters, pull one over, and put that in here and put that into each of these. And maybe to help get this stay, you can pour a little bit of water on here or spray a little bit of water from a spray bottle into here. And basically what we're going to do is once we have the buckets and we pour some of the water off the buckets, we're going to be pouring the water and sediment into these different funnel and beaker systems. Okay, so I poured off most of the water from US1 very, very carefully. Obviously, we do not want to get rid of any of the sediment. And what I'm going to do is slowly pour the water and the sediment that are remaining in US1 into the filter paper here. Let me mix this up just a little bit so I have some sediment coming out with this as well. Pour that in here and basically just let it filter through. I've done that for US3. You can see that's mostly, if not all, just completely clay. But this is the process, and you're just going to keep doing this. When you get towards the bottom of this, it's good to take a water sprayer and use that to get out the remaining sediment. And I would also say always be sure to hose or spray around this outlet, because sometimes grains get caught in here as well. But more or less, you're just going to be removing the sediment from here and the water slowly and carefully, making sure that you're getting all of the sediment out of the bucket. Okay. While that is going on, while the filter paper is working, you can go ahead and clean up everything. You're going to have to clean basically all of the beakers, all the tubes, etc. I forgot to mention, when you're taking the stirrer out, be sure to be very, very careful. You kind of have to move it back and twist it a little bit at the same time so that it doesn't get caught on anything. And you can wash all the water out of the Sonic if you're not going to be using it for a while by just here we go, moving this valve right here, and the water should drain out. We've let some time pass, and the filter paper, all the sediment on the filter paper has pretty much dried. We've got US3, which I've already transferred over to the Petri dish, US2 and US1. And what we want to do is remove the sediment, or take the sediment from the filter paper and put it into a Petri dish. I've already done that for US3, as you can see here. In this case, the sediment is really quite dry, so you can use a spatula to carefully transfer this material over like this. But of course, you're not going to be able to get all of the material out just using a spatula. And so at that point, you want to very carefully open up the filter paper. Get more sediment out of it. And you can use either a water spray bottle to remove the rest of this material, or in this case, I'll use isopropyl alcohol just because it evaporates relatively quickly, so all this dries out. If you use water, you can take this, once it's done, take that over to the oven and put that in there and let it dry out. If you're using isopropyl alcohol, obviously you do not want to have alcohol around a heat source. So I'll use the isopropyl alcohol, as I said here, and just wash the rest of the sediment in here. Again, we don't want to waste any sediment or throw anything away. And so we'll just continue to do that until we get all of the sediment out of or off of the filter paper. Okay, on to US1, or the Ultrasonic 1. This has all the grains that we're actually interested in. So again, I'm going to carefully remove the filter paper from the funnel. and transfer all of the material into the Petri dish. Getting what I can with the spatula, and then when I'm done with that, carefully open up the filter paper. And then once again, you can use water, a spray bottle, or in this case, you can use isopropyl alcohol to make sure you get every single grain off of the filter paper. And once you're done with that, if you're using isopropyl alcohol, obviously you're just gonna let that dry. If you're using water, you can put it in the oven and that'll help it dry. And then ultimately this material, it depends on what you want to do. Some people will just take this and go directly to the fronds and do magnetic separation. Sometimes we'll put this material through another mesh, a 250 micron mesh, just to get rid of all the larger grains. But it's really up to you. But basically, once this material starts drying out, it's getting close to being ready to go to the fronds.